Not that long ago, a folding e-bike under $1,000 meant a list of compromises that you just had to live with. Cadence sensor, a washed out monochrome display, a rear rack if it had one at all, maybe could carry a backpack, the list goes on. Well, times have changed for the better, and I think the new Portola O2, we're just going to call it the Portola 2, is going to shake up the folding e-bike industry a little bit, because I couldn't even believe the starting price. Yes, starting price, because there happens to be 4 tiers of the new Portola. In this review, I'll walk you through all the components, I'll show you how to fold it, I'll talk about fit, then we'll take it for a ride. I'm curious how an e-bike this affordable will fare on our hill climb test. Finally, I'll wrap things up with the pros and cons, but first, let's take a closer look. Since 2018, Ride1Up has built its name on being a direct-to-consumer e-bike company, undercutting the market without making you feel like you cheaped out. And the original Portola was one of the best value folding e-bikes that we threw our leg over. And in some ways, they've increased the value here, so you're getting more value than the previous generation Portola. Let's talk pricing, because that's where it gets really interesting. But before we do, I have one favor to ask. If you're planning to pick up a Ride1Up e-bike, simply use our link down in the description or scan the QR code on your screen before you click that buy button. It's free and truly helps us out, so thanks. So there are really 2 frame designs here. The Portola 2 Lite, that's what I have here, and then the Portola 2. The Lite starts at just $895, which is hard for me to believe. That's with a 10 amp hour battery. Want a bigger battery? Just add $100, $995 for a 15 amp hour battery. You might have noticed that the Lite is missing a couple things that some other e-bikes have, and that is fenders and a rear rack. If you want that, it'll be $995 for the 10 amp hour version, or if you want a bigger battery, simply get the Portola 2 with the 15 amp hour battery. It's $1095, but don't worry, all 4 models have the exact same motor. They're actually advertising it as silent, though I'll hold judgment until I get to test it out. On all 4 models, you can switch between the torque or the cadence sensor. They all have front suspension. The list goes on. The Portola 2 comes in 4 different colors. They say it can accommodate riders all the way down to 4'10". I'm 6 feet tall with a 32-inch inseam. My wife is 5'5". And check this out, I didn't even have the seat post in its highest position. So if you're taller than me, you could still get full leg extension. They say it weighs in at 59 pounds. I'll throw it on our scale to verify. It has a 342-pound total payload capacity. The standover height right here is just 16.5 inches. Let's jump into the rest of the components. The brakes are 2-piston hydraulic disc brakes paired with 180mm rotors front and rear. Tires are from Chaoyang, 20 by 3 inches wide. The front wheel attaches with a quick release. The front light runs off the main battery. With the Portola 2 Lite, you get a rechargeable light that attaches to the seat post. On the version with fenders and a rear rack, you get an integrated rear light with turn signals. The front suspension fork offers 100mm of travel. This is what you can expect. Preload adjustment on the left, lockout on the right, either locked or unlocked. There's 4 mounting points for a front rack. Cables enter beneath the frame. The handlebars have this huge swoop to them, and so it is a little bit more of a different riding position compared to many of the other folding e-bikes on the market. You get ergonomic locking rubber grips, brake levers with motor cutoffs, a left-hand thumb throttle. On the right side, a bell, and Shimano's 8-speed trigger shifter. Moving on to the controls and display, there is a USB-C port located beneath the display for charging your device, 5-button control pad on the left, pedal assist up and down, power button in the center, and turn signals if you have them, left and right. Let's turn the bike on, Ride1Up on boot up. In the top left-hand corner, the T tells me I'm currently using the torque sensor. We have current speed, a motor bar, you'll see that when you're riding. Then we have the pedal assist levels with the estimated range. There's Eco, Tour, Sport, Turbo, and finally Boost. You can turn the lights on by holding pedal assist up. Screen goes into dark mode, which is kind of cool. Engage walk mode by holding pedal assist down. We'll turn the lights off here. Then we have battery capacity. Hitting the center button will cycle through additional information, over to how much time you've used each pedal assist level, and then we have trip, total trip, average speed, max speed, and calories. To get into the advanced settings, hold pedal assist up and down at the same time. So we have units. You can change the backlight or the screen brightness, reset the calorie, do a trip reset, change the auto sleep, set a password. This bike also has Apple Find My. Then we have a torque ratio. For each pedal assist level, you can change the percentage. Next is amp output, which you can adjust as well. And when you're selecting these, you use the left and right turn signals to adjust the percentage. Next is riding mode, class 1, 2, or 3, e-bike info. Then there's advanced set. This is where you can change between the torque or the cadence sensor. And finally, there's reset. If your bike has turn signals, when you hit them, they will have an indicator on the screen. And that's it for the controls and the super easy to read, even in bright sunlight display. I love this top load battery, just so much easier to remove it and put it back in. Keyhole on the right side, turn to the right and it will pop out slightly. This particular model is the larger battery, so it's a 48 volt, 15 amp hour battery. But remember, you can save $100 and get the 10 amp hour battery. You can get an idea of the current charge by pressing this button right here. Let's make sure it fits in our battery bag, sold at shop.ebikeescape.com. It does. The bag is waterproof and flame resistant, and when you roll it up, you have a nice grab handle. This and other high quality e-bike accessories available at shop.ebikeescape.com. Your purchase supports the channel, so thanks. To charge the battery up, you can do so here, or when it's in the bike by removing this rubber cover. They include a 2 amp charger, so 7.5 hours to charge up the 15 amp hour battery from empty, 5 hours to charge up the 10 amp hour battery from empty. You also get a Ride1Up beanie, owner's manual, assembly instructions. I'll talk more about that during my conclusion. An actually nice Allen set, as well as maintenance grease. And finally, a rear reflector. To put the battery back in, terminals first, note the tab. That'll go in first and simply snap into place. There's a stand for when the bike is folded. Really liking the Ride1Up graphics. This is the saddle. You get folding pedals, push in, flip up. Rear mounted kickstand. This keeps the bike together when it's folded. And these rubber covers cover up where you can install pegs for a passenger, though that's reserved for the rear rack model for obvious reasons. Controller is mounted behind the seat tube here. It's a 750 watt AKM motor with 90 Newton meters of torque, engaged with either the cadence or the torque sensor, your choice. The derailleur is Shimano Altus. Gearing is 11 to 32 teeth in the rear, 48 teeth up front. And if you do decide to buy the Portola 2 with the rear rack, it has a huge weight capacity, 150 pounds. They even have some unique accessories to go along with it to make it more of a utility e-bike. Before we get into the first person riding footage, let's fold the bike. We'll start with those folding pedals. And I'm going to put this one towards the back. Next we have the handlebars, push in, pull out. On the other side is a button, push that. Handlebars come down. Next, the main lever, slide and pull out. We'll put the kickstand up, use my leg to brace it, bring the front around, and bring the frame together. We'll use the strap to make sure the bike doesn't come apart, snapped into place. And there you go, a folded Portola 2, resting nicely on its stand. There's a look at where the cables run through the frame. And while it's still a heavy folding e-bike, I mean, it does have a full powered motor and a large battery, the fact that it folds still makes it nice and portable, so you can put it in the back of your vehicle and you don't have to buy an expensive e-bike rated rack. With that, let's get into some first person riding footage. Let's see how the bike performs. All right, let's get started. I am very excited to test this bike out because a lot of what has changed on the Portola 2 compared to the first generation is the ride feel. Of course, the customization, but then also you have this awesome color LCD display. So we'll see how it performs. First, we'll do our throttle-only test, then I'll go through the cadence and torque sensor, and then finally, we'll see how it does up our huge hill climb test. Now, just a note, even with the pedal assist turned off, you still have access to the throttle. Let's see how fast we can get to 20. 3, 2, 1, throttle only. All right, I'm seeing 1119 watts is the maximum. 18, 19, Display's reading 19.9, there's 20. And what I'm seeing with the throttle is it pretty quickly gets you up to that max wattage of 1119 watts. Now, just to note, there is no way to customize the throttle to limit how much you get, say, in every pedal assist level, but you can modulate this throttle, which is good. So from a stop, if I just want a little bit of throttle just to get started, so there's just around 200 to 400 watts. Now you do have to hold your thumb in that position, but it is an option. If I want a little bit more, just hold down the throttle. So yes, it's not an all or nothing unless you're just slamming the throttle down right away. I have it first in the torque sensor, and then we'll switch it to the cadence sensor. We're in eco, first gear. All right, and basically immediate response from the motor. So a torque sensor, what it does is it actually measures how hard you're pedaling. So if you pedal harder, it's going to reward you with that, with more motor power. How much? Depends, yes, on the customization, but also your pedal assist level. Not surprising in eco, it's actually just a tiny bit of power. In fact, I've seen it read around 50 watts, and if I put in more pedal power though, I'm getting up to 100. Right now it's showing 52. But if I'm pedaling nice and easy here in second gear, just cruising at around 8 miles an hour, we'll shift up here to fifth gear. So putting in a little bit more power, I wouldn't be winded after a long time, but even more power from my legs, I can get up to 15. All right, let's switch it over to tour. See what the difference is. We'll shift down to fourth gear, gently spinning my legs. So it's still showing that lower wattage output, but then just a little bit more power. So now I'm seeing closer to 300 watts and we're cruising at 13 miles an hour, a little bit easier. So yeah, not a huge difference between eco and tour. Not surprisingly, you're just getting a little bit more power in tour. That's because the stock settings with the torque ratio for eco is 15%, and then it's 25% for tour. And remember, those settings are also impacted by the amp output. All right, going up into sport now. So right now it's showing 200 watts, and again, spinning my legs nice and easy. Cruising at 12, 13 miles an hour. A little bit more leg power. So you're seeing the progression here. Getting closer to 16 or 17 miles an hour. The wattage is still fairly low though, still under 300 watts, but then more leg power, I feel an immediate response, and I can hit 20 miles per hour. And while this is more pedal pressure, it's not a ton. I'm hitting 20 miles per hour. All right, let's see what turbo feels like. Okay, now we're getting just over 300 watts with me just spinning my legs nice and easy and cruising at 16 miles an hour. All right, a little bit more power from my legs in turbo here. I'm in sixth gear, able to hit around 21 miles an hour. Even more effort still. 24. My legs can feel it though, keeping up with this car. So in turbo, not super hard to hit around 400 to 500 watts. And then yeah, when I really push in, I am getting close to the full wattage. I saw over 1,000 watts there. All right, let's go into boost. All right, I'm in sixth gear. All right, now I'm just getting around 500 watts, just spinning my legs nice and easy. We'll shift up into seventh gear here. So yeah, class 2 speeds, 20 miles per hour, very easy. Right now it says we're using between high 400s to 600 watts, 21, and a little bit more leg power. I'm gonna shift up to eighth gear here. 25 miles an hour, 26. We're going up a slight hill here. Motor power reading at 1,034 watts. So mid-20s, very doable. Display reading 27.7, there's 28 according to the display. Now we're going to switch it over to the cadence sensor. So first on the display, we have the C for the cadence sensor, and then I'm looking at the amp output, 50, 65, 80, and then 100 for turbo and boost. All right, I'm in eco, first gear. Maybe slightly longer for that cadence sensor to engage, but still like a half pedal stroke. Now, what is a cadence sensor? Well, It simply measures whether you're pedaling. If you are, it's going to give you motor power. No matter how hard you're pressing on the pedals, it doesn't matter. And in Eco, I am getting 517 watts, going 22 miles an hour, and I'm just spinning my legs. I mean, I should have shifted up. There we go. I had to shift up in 8th gear here so I could provide my own pedal pressure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the amp output all the way down. I mean, that was just far too much. And that is the beauty of having this customization. So I have it at 15, 30, 50, 75, and finally 100%. I think this is going to be a little bit more accessible on the low end. All right, and now let's start in Eco. First gear. All right, I can tell this is going to be much better turning those settings down, which is awesome that you have access to it. First gear, barely putting in any effort. Let me shift up so I can at least. All right, and we are getting just 158 watts. Now, it will continue to give me 158 watts no matter what I'm doing, as long as I'm in Eco, and we will creep up in speed. This is not speed limited. So right now we're cruising at 10 miles an hour. Let's go into Tour. So that was at 30%. Now we're getting 316 watts consistently, and you're going to see just the power just slowly increase and my speed slowly increase. All right, there's Sport, 528 watts. And yeah, now I think we'll start hitting some of those higher speeds because 500 watts is actually quite a bit of power. 7th gear here, 18, 19. All right, let's go into Turbo. Now we're getting 844 watts and we're cruising at 22 miles an hour. So I think I picked those percentages out pretty good. And now we're in Boost, getting 1100 watts. That's what the peak power, I think, of this motor is. I'm going to shift up in 8th gear. That whole time I really wasn't providing power. All right, 27 miles an hour, 28. So I can still provide pedal pressure at 28 miles an hour. I mean, my cadence is maybe a little bit faster than I'd prefer, but it is doable. But even so, it wasn't impossible to get the full 1100 watts with the torque sensor. So that would be my preference on this bike. Let me know what you think. All these companies are letting you pick between a cadence sensor or a torque sensor. Which one are you actually going with? I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. All right, now we need to take this up our large hill climb test. So I'm going to transport down to Arkansas so we can see how it does. I made it back to Arkansas. Let's get into our hill climb test. The GoPro makes this hill look so much smaller than it is, so we'll put up the specs, and I am very curious what the minimum speed is. First test, just throttling up, seeing what the minimum speed is. 13, 12, 11, and I have to say the motor is really quiet. Now I can hear it just a little bit if I listen carefully. There's 9 miles an hour, but this is certainly one of the quieter electric bikes that I've reviewed, and it looks like 9 miles an hour is going to be the minimum speed, which when you consider the price is pretty impressive. But pedaling goes a long way, so I'm going to go down the hill. We'll test out the brakes, and then we'll see how the torque sensor does up a huge hill. All right, wait till I get to around 20 here. All right. No problem with these hydraulic disc brakes. Was able to lock up that rear tire. Let's do it again. Yeah. These are Gemma hydraulic disc brakes. Not a brand that we see quite as frequently. I've heard of them, but yeah, these feel pretty good and they will stop you. We're going to go up the hill with the torque sensor. I kind of learned that being able to switch between torque and cadence, it's not meant to be something that you do regularly, more of a set it and forget it. Set your settings, use the torque sensor, or set your settings and use the cadence sensor. All right, we're in first gear, Eco. Now, I think I can better explain torque ratio and amp output as well. All right, I'm going to go up into Tour though first. All right, not a whole lot of relief there, pushing really hard into my legs. So torque ratio, that's like your, how hard is it to hit the amp output that you have set. I'm going to go up in sport. Okay, still a decent bit of effort. All right, now turbo. So turbo and boost have the same amp output. You can still get the maximum motor power. It's just how hard is it going to be to get there? That's torque ratio. And yeah, only going 5 miles an hour up in turbo. Let's go into boost. Okay, so a lot of relief there. That just demonstrates the difference. It's easier for me to get more motor power. Now, how much? Still just shy of 500 watts. We're not cruising up the hill as fast as we did on throttle alone. There's 6. And yeah, still in first gear, still putting in a moderate amount of effort. Now, if I put in more, getting closer to 900 watts, and I imagine, yeah, if I really pedal hard, I will get the full peak power. But on this bike, if you need a little bit more power, because it's still a little hard to get there in boost, just use that throttle, pedal alongside it. No problem doing that. All right, let's talk about geometry, because there's certainly some things to talk about, especially when you compare to other folding electric bikes. So first, let's talk about the seat. It's actually fairly comfortable, better than average. Now the front fork's certainly basic, but you can feel it doing its work up there. Trust me, if it was rigid, you would know. And then I think the next thing, one of the biggest changes is this doesn't have those T-style handlebars. These handlebars have this giant swoop to them. And so there are trade-offs, certainly, one being that it's a little harder to mount accessories, though our cell phone mount, I made it work, available at shop.ebikeescape.com. And I think the main difference, besides having a little bit more adjustability to bring them further away from you or close to you, the difference between these handlebars and the T-style handlebars is that with the T-style handlebars, I think most people find that their kind of arms are parallel to the ground. Now that might be a riding position that you prefer, that's totally fine. This bike just offers a slightly different riding position. As a taller rider, I certainly, my arms are facing towards the ground, they're at an angle, but I'm still in a reasonably upright riding position, very comfortable. Now with that, of course, I don't have any adjustability, but I am able to get full leg extension. So just keep that in mind, depending on how tall you are, how kind of this bike will fit a little bit different. All right, with that, let's get into some third-person riding footage. I'll give you my concluding thoughts on the Ride1Up Portola 2. The folding e-bike space is one of the most competitive segments in all of e-bikes, especially right around this price. So how did Ride1Up do, and which one should you actually buy? First, the reality these days is that it's all about specs for the price, and I'm downright impressed here. $895 to start on the Lite with the 10 amp hour battery, and even the most expensive spec of the Portola 2 is $1095 with a 15 amp hour battery. Honestly, hard to believe, but price is one thing, let's talk about the rest. Looks are subjective, but this has to be one of the best looking folders at the affordable price point. It's not too dissimilar from the first gen, they just cleaned it up and added some really nice colors. The cables run through the frame, and the top load battery is integrated and easy to pull out and drop back in. Cleaner and more functional. Staying on the frame, the rear rack on the models that include it is rated at 150 pounds, and I love the cargo options that Ride1Up offers. That's what makes this thing versatile. It's a folder, but it can be a utility e-bike too if that's what you need. You get an Altus derailleur where some companies would stick with something lower spec on a bike at this price, paired with a trigger shifter. The hydraulic disc brakes performed well, the motor is amazingly quiet, and it did a good job on our hill climb test. It lacks the extra punch of some of the higher peak wattage motors, but it's going to be plenty for a majority of riders. And this display is vibrant. I really like it considering the price, and as a power user if you will, I appreciate the customization in there. Mid-20s is doable on the torque sensor without too much effort, and there's a cadence sensor if you just want to guarantee power. The pedal assist is extremely smooth. you can tell Ride1Up spent a great deal of time choosing their torque sensor and controller components from Mevice and dialing it in. And then there's the fold, which is the whole point of a bike like this. It opens up where you can put it, a trunk, behind a seat, perhaps in a closet. Just keep your expectations in check on weight. Any full-powered e-bike with a big battery is going to be heavy, and this one is no different. Folding makes it easier to store and haul, it doesn't make it light. On range, Ride1Up claims up to 60 miles, and that feels accurate to me on the 15 amp hour battery in lower assist. Do that math on the Lite, and its 10 amp hours lands right around 40 miles under the same conditions. That's one more reason I'd steer most people toward the bigger battery, just less chance of range anxiety. So what are the considerations? For one, these 20-inch bikes tend to fit shorter riders better. Not to say I couldn't make it work as a taller rider. A couple of minor things I'd change. I'd like the ability to customize throttle power, say tie it to each pedal assist level. That's just nice to have as an option. And just know that these handlebars aren't as conducive to attaching accessories. With the Portola 2, you do have to attach the stem yourself. Otherwise, assembly is pretty easy. Ride1Up has some helpful instructions, so just know what you're getting into. You'll want to make sure your handlebars are straight with your tire, and if you're unsure, just take it to a bike shop. Support is online too, but Ride1Up has been in this game for a long time and have proven themselves. That's just a trade-off you're making for this amazing price. As far as my recommendation to you, it's only $100 more for an additional 5 amp hours of capacity. So I think most riders should be deciding between the $995 Lite without the fenders and rear rack, or $1095 with them, plus you have the integrated rear light. And to be honest, I see most riders just wanting fenders and a rack, so my bet is the top tier ends up being Ride1Up's bestseller. I'm genuinely impressed with what Ride1Up has done here. Hydraulic brakes, a torque sensor, internal cable routing, nice display, full powered motor on a folder that starts under $900. That combination just didn't exist from a reputable company a couple of years ago. If you decide to buy one, you can support the channel for free using the link in the description or scanning the QR code on your screen now. Now I want to hear from you. If you're shopping for folding e-bikes right now, what's the one spec you won't compromise on? Let me know down in the comment section. And if you want to see how the Portola 2 compares to other popular folding e-bikes on the market, be sure to check out our other reviews. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.